I'm gonna switch my view here. Not sure who I'll get. I get Craig. Well, hello and welcome to the July monthly meeting of the Boston and Boston Metro West Citizens Climate Lobby chapters. Tonight, we're honored to have as our guest speaker, Dr. Luis Aguirre Torres. Dr. Aguirre Torres is the Director of Sustainability for the City of Ithaca, New York, where he leads the city's decarbonization and climate justice strategies. He is also co-chair of the Society and Economy Work Group of the New York State Climate Impacts Assessment Project. Tonight, Dr. Aguirre Torres will speak to us about the Ithaca Green New Deal, a blueprint for citywide decarbonization. Dr. Aguirre Torres, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Gary. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you. I had a conversation with Gary, I think it was a week ago, where I learned more about you and what you do. I just love it that we start a conversation. Who do you lobby today? That's just nice. You know, that's precisely what we are supposed to do when we have, you know, ideas that could change things for everybody. So today I want to share with you some of the work that we have been doing in Ithaca. Just as a way of introduction, the City of Ithaca committed to do, you know, to achieve carbon neutrality in 2019, and at that time they had absolutely no idea what they were doing. And you know, the 2 years later, you know, trying to get through the pandemic, you know, the city decided to retake that effort, and that's where I came in. And my job has been to, you know, design and then implement the city's strategy to achieve full decarbonization by 2030. So I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with you. Okay, I think I need to be allowed to share.
There you go.
Excellent. Oh, my computer just froze. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, now okay, perfect. Sometimes it happens. Can you see it in presentation mode right now?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So as I was saying, in June 2019, the City of Ithaca passed this resolution, you know, agreeing to strive for carbon neutrality by 2030, and to also address economic inequality and racial injustice in the process. So they basically wanted everything to happen. So the way I translate this into something that we can actually measure is, you know, one, the city decided to prioritize climate justice. They decided to, you know, try to address all these issues and the intersections of social justice and environmental justice. We decided to reduce energy intensity by 50% and carbon intensity by 90%. The idea is to eventually eliminate 100% of carbon emissions in the city. And to do that, we're going to have to use some carbon negative technologies. You know, the city of Ithaca, it's really, you know, quite typical in terms of energy profile. You know, like people tend to refer to Ithaca in different ways, as, you know, it's a very progressive community, or, you know, because of Cornell University, it is of a particular kind. But the truth is, you know, everybody gets up, has breakfast, takes a shower, go to work, come back, watch Netflix. You know, at the end of the day, you know, it is the same energy profile, you know, at least at the residential level. And then industry is mild here. You know, we don't have a lot of industry. We have some commercial buildings. But at the end of the day, our emissions come from basically 4 sources that we have identified. You know, according to our greenhouse gas inventory, we have 400,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. 40% comes from buildings, mostly space heating. 40% comes from transportation, mostly single passenger vehicles, passenger vehicles. And then 15% comes from the grid. We're in a part of New York where about 80% of our electricity comes from carbon-free sources. So only 20% actually comes from fossil fuels. And then 5% comes from waste and land use. So we believe that, you know, to address this and to really try to achieve our goals, we should really go for, you know, cross-cutting strategies. So we're going to try to achieve energy efficiency, you know, across all aspects of the economy. And we believe that could lead to 30% reduction in greenhouse gases. We are going to try to decarbonize the electric grid by deploying more solar and moving to community choice aggregation. And we believe that could lead to 30% reductions also. We believe in electrifying everything that we can electrify in the city. and also relying on some other carbon negative technologies, and together we'll achieve 100% carbon emissions reduction. So, when I talk to Common Council, it's always literally I was asked to draw a picture. Like, when I proposed this to Common Council, it was very difficult, mostly because of the level of complexity that comes with it. When you do this for a living, it's relatively easy to understand and explain, what is it that you want to do. But the city of Ithaca City Council really needed to be able to explain, to their constituents. So it was, more or less like this. We started talking about, when we say that we want to achieve energy efficiency across all aspects of the economy, we're really talking about thermal efficiency in buildings. We're talking about, making sure that they are perfectly well insulated and air sealed, that the windows, perform in the right way, and that we have the right ventilation systems. Then we need to make sure that, we have a circular economic model, for waste. And also in terms of energy efficiency, we want people to use more transit. We want people to stop using their cars. So we need to find ways of also integrating other forms of micromobility. But then, when we talk about electrification, and here, with the prospect of eliminating 30% of the emissions, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to go after, natural gas, propane, or fuel oil heating systems. We're trying to go for water heating systems and dryers, and substitute all those three appliances with heat pumps. We're looking at air source heat pumps, but we are concerned about, the type of refrigerants that we can use. So we're also looking at ground source heat pumps, CO2 heat pumps, and at this point, a lot of the complexities related to supply chain more than anything else. But we're also looking at cooktops. We have a program that is trying to replace all cooktops in the city with induction based. We believe that by doing this, we're going to also achieve a lower use of electricity. But then, things got really interesting, because when we were, planning this and we were figuring this out, we started looking at really what are the economic benefits of co-deploying some technologies. Because, just doing this, just doing heat pumps, and thinking that, okay, if we were to do, for example, a heat pump for clothes drying, then we realized that the type of installation that we needed was the same one that we need for a level 2 charging station on site. So we started looking at that in those terms. Then we saw that the fact that we needed to do all of these may require some intervention in the electrical panel. So we started looking into that. And then we saw that, there were real economic benefits of co-deploying solar, rooftop solar, with heat pumps and solar with EV charging stations. So we started looking at other technologies such as SolShare that allows us to distribute behind the meter solar energy that is being generated in every building. But because we were electrifying the entire city, we started looking also at energy storage. Right now, we have a couple of projects where we are doing energy storage at the utility scale in order to add flexibility to the grid. Because truth be told, if we were to electrify the entire city, honestly, we can do 15% without the city catching fire. So we are already, upgrading our infrastructure. A lot of we influence the utility company into submitting to the rate case, an investment of close to $70 million to upgrade a couple of substations in the city, and also to include 2 non-wires alternative projects using energy storage. When we are talking about decarbonization of the grid, we're also talking about decarbonization of heavy-duty vehicles. We're looking at either hydrogen transit buses or hydrogen-powered charging stations for electric buses. And this is one of the coolest projects that we have going right now, because what we are doing is we're looking at the wastewater treatment plant, which is, advanced enough, we could say. But after the biodigesters, there is an amount of sludge that actually goes to the landfill. So starting next year, what we want is to take that and put it into a pyrolysis system, and then recuperate the water and use the waste energy, the thermal energy, to produce electricity and power electrolyzers. Right now, our transit authority is having trouble with the 7 electric buses that we have, and the idea is to have 50. So right now, we are thinking of having a green hydrogen power charging station for heavy-duty vehicles in the south of the city, and that includes also refuse trucks. We are hoping to have this year our first electric garbage truck, and then have order the next 20 electric buses. But then we need to keep on looking at carbon negative technologies. But for example, what we're doing with the wastewater treatment plant, if we were to put this into a pyrolysis system, all the sludge and all the organic waste, we would actually be able to achieve carbon sequestration and then also make use of that for agriculture, or we could, as I mentioned, produce hydrogen. We're looking at other technologies, but the truth be told, right now we're not entirely sure, what of these technologies are real and what we need to work with. So we are, moving in that direction, but we are still thinking. One thing is climate justice. As I mentioned, the resolution that started it all wanted the city to address economic inequality, historical inequities, and social injustice at the same time that we were transforming the city into a carbon neutral city. So climate justice is an important issue. And just last month, the city adopted a local definition for climate justice community and a definition of Justice 50, which means in our case that the city is going to redirect 50% of the benefits of this transformation to climate justice communities, which we define in a very, very comprehensive way, taking into account elements that are part of the environmental justice definition from the EPA, Justice 40 definition from the federal government, even the state definition from the Department of Environmental Conservation. But we are adding elements that are very specific to our community. We have a lot of vulnerable groups that, because of COVID, now they have climate change is behaving as a threat multiplier with them. So based on that, we have a new strategy for addressing climate justice. It is all documented in our climate action plan that is being updated as we speak. And we are implementing a brand new model of democratic engagement. And this is kind of cool. We have a project called 1000 Conversations with the Community. And we are recording in video 1000 conversations with the community. We started about 10 months ago. We are about 500 right now. I think we're going to reach the 1000. And what we're going to do is we're going to have 1000 videos that, volunteers are beginning to curate. And we're going to produce a 2-hour movie. But the idea is to really document what people are thinking, because the prompt goes beyond what do you think about us? It is what do you care about? It is recording conversations that people are having with their families at the kitchen table. And we are trying to learn from them, because all this process needs to have, input from the community. And workforce development, very much related to climate justice. We are implementing a really comprehensive model. We actually had to partner with 5 surrounding cities, because the city of Ithaca, with this transformation, we expect to create 3,000 jobs between now and 2030, which is huge for a 30,000 people city. So we decided to go to Binghamton, Elmira, Rochester, Syracuse, other cities which are like an hour radius, around the city of Ithaca. And we are partnering with them to share the cost of transportation, the cost of childcare, coaching, language support, technology support, so we can bring people from those cities. For example, the city of Rochester has high levels of unemployment with the Black population, and Elmira with formerly incarcerated, and there's a lot of undocumented immigrants in Ithaca. So all of these combines for a workforce development program that is actually trying to do right by people that normally have been left out. We are implementing apprenticeship programs and training on the job programs. But we are also working with a utility company. As I mentioned before, this thing is going to catch fire if we don't do it right. And we have identified ways of doing this. There are 2 neighborhoods in the city where we cannot really start electrification unless we upgrade some substations or add energy storage. So we're working on that, and that's why we got the $70 million. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're building a city where you have everything that you see interacting with the grid. So if we have a city that is moving away from demand-based to supply-based energy systems, then we are implementing a virtual power plant. And that's what the end game is for the Ithaca Green New Deal from an infrastructure point of view. So we're building a virtual power plant that is going to have multiple layers with interconnected microgrids. And the hope is that we're going to get it done, by 2030. Truth be told, and I need to be honest, I think we're going to make it to 70% by 2030. But, I'm hopeful that we can make it there. Very quickly, just so I don't take too much of your time, I just want to share with you the strategy that we're following to tackle this. We believe that this is similar to the diffusion of technology. We can look at it in a very similar way. So if we think about the yellow line showing, market penetration, and then the bell curve showing, adoption, we can see that, there is a group of people that believe in other things. They are on the other side of the political spectrum. We are not going to do anything with them. Then there is people, there's Tesla owners, there is the people with money. People are already doing this. This is about 16% of the city. So we don't bother with them either because they are doing it anyway. So we really care about this group. It's about 50% of the city. But then in this group, we have, the low income people who are almost half of that. And at the end of the day, what we are left with are 30%. The reason we don't bother promoting this with low income people is because we have a program that is going to pay for this, on their behalf. So there is a very compelling reason for low income building owners and individuals to participate in our program. So we believe that this has to be very targeted. So we're targeting 30% of the population. From a behavioral economics point of view, we believe that that is what is going to turn the tide and it's going to bring everybody else on board. Because once we have the early minority, the early majority, the late majority, we have everybody that we need to claim that more than 51% of the city are already reducing carbon emissions, which means those not doing it are very likely disproportionately harming others, and then we can legislate against that. And that's the way we bring everybody along. This is a quick map of the city. I'm showing you this because this is something that we built. If you give me an address in the city, I can tell you the energy profile of that building. What you see in green are buildings that are energy efficient. Those in red are the most inefficient buildings that we have, and we need to work on them. So they are the first ones that we're going to try to retrofit and electrify. As you can see, there is a lot of work to be done, and you can identify by the amount of red that in some places we have low-income people with saturated circuits in the city. So this is going to be fun, and I just wanted to share that with you. The reality is that for this to be successful, we need to create, increase market sophistication, have more options in terms of what we can do with the different suppliers. We need to address fragmentation. Through an RFP, we actually promoted consolidation in the industry, so it would be easier to work with contractors. We are also creating economies of scale by going, city-wide, which is giving us also bulk purchasing power. We are developing a skilled workforce. We have a number of organizations working with us in workforce development. And we're working with the government, both federal and state, to consolidate government incentives to buy down the cost of capital so we can really unlock financial flows. At the end of the day, we believe that risk mitigation implemented at the city level is the way to go, so we can actually de-risk the capital that is coming. And that would allow us at the same time, through the implementation of loan guarantees and loan loss reserves, to achieve really financial inclusion, which goes hand in hand with climate justice. At the end of the day, what this program does is aggregating a large number of small-scale projects so they can eventually be de-risked and securitized as energy assets. So that's what the program is doing. That's what we're trying to do in Ithaca. It's a short presentation, a ton of information, but I'm hopeful that I was able to communicate, relevant information to you.
Great, thank you. Let's take a few questions. Since I get my
yeah, could I ask a question? So this is kind of a massive project with a lot of moving pieces, like a lot of small initiatives that add up to something really big. So who are your key partners in doing this? Because I'm assuming you're not doing it alone.
Well, at the beginning, we were planning it just us, and it was a nightmare. And I wanted to stay married, so I needed to recruit people. So no, we're working with a ton of members of the community. Right now, the whole project has 57 official partners from the private sector and community-based organizations. Perhaps the most important ones are Block Power, Alturos, and Cornell University. But for example, one that has done an incredible amount of work and has been very helpful is Historic Ithaca. About 80% of our buildings are historical landmarks, and it's been very difficult to truly assess the amount of work that is needed to transform those buildings. So they are volunteering a ton of time. The engineering firm Tetra Tech is also working with us. So we have a large number of people participating, and the community kind of took this, there's a sense of collective ownership of this project. So it's really cool that every day I get more volunteers that I can use, for implementation.
Pardon me, I'm not on mute. I have really tons of questions, and we could probably fill back the full hour with all that's coming up to mind. But I'll go with a few specific questions. You mentioned hydrogen. Aren't you worried that first off, if your source of hydrogen is just going to be the waste plant, you definitely won't have enough to move 2 buses, never mind 5 or 50, like you said. So that's the first issue. And regardless, the efficiency of hydrogen is not there. So how did you decide to, with a limited budget that maybe you have to manage all of those things at once? It seems one area where maybe alternatives should be sought. What are your thoughts on that?
You're muted.
Yeah, we're actually, working with Standard Hydrogen, which is a company that uses electrolyzers to produce electricity. And we are in the process of signing a PPA with Invenergy for a wind farm. So it's going to be renewable energy powering electrolyzers to produce green hydrogen. So we're going to have a combination of carbon neutral and green hydrogen. The inefficiencies are there. For every 50 kilowatt hour, we produce 40 kilowatt hour. So, you can say that thermodynamically, this is the most inefficient project that you will see. And given the cost of hydrogen, you are talking about 15 cents a kilowatt hour at the end of the day. Here is the funny thing. We're a very small city. Our infrastructure is very limited, and the transit authority has already 7 buses that they cannot get going at the same time. Only 3 at a time right now because of charging infrastructure. And they have the chargers, they just don't have the capacity to charge them. So we did the numbers, and considering their alternative, this was a viable option from a financial point of view. So we're looking at this as a way of, and they're happy to pay the premium. And at the end of the day, their operating costs are going to be slightly under what they have today if they were to run all 7 buses. So it's a funny thing because it's expensive, it's thermodynamically inefficient, but it actually works for us. And I was probably as surprised as you are. So we did consider a few options.
And maybe it's in the details, and you can send that. I would be really interested in seeing the numbers, because you say that you're going to be producing essentially green hydrogen, through wind power. So how many towers, how many? That seems like an awful lot for 5 buses. Probably looking at. Please go ahead.
No, I was going to say that the pilot program is mostly, we're using solar right now to power the electrolyzers, and it's just enough for the 7 buses. But we have there is a very large development, similar to the Brooklyn Navy Yard in our neighborhood. And it's probably about 1/6 of the city. And because of the energy code that we have that bans natural gas in new developments, they are thinking of using hydrogen as backup power in that whole development. So we are really testing it out for them. We're doing a bit of their homework. And here's the funny thing that we did. In September last year, I wrote a letter to Senator Schumer saying, like, I want to play with hydrogen. Would you give me some money? And he did. I was very surprised. He awarded us $1 million so we could play with hydrogen. And that's going to be the basis for this project.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, it doesn't validate it physically. You have to look at the physics of things, and I'm a little bit worried there. I mean, just a word of warning. I think that the math doesn't add up.
Mark, okay. I'd like to move on to other.
Of course, and I don't mean to hammer the fact.
No, I appreciate that, Mark.
But I'm very interested in those matters, and if you have information, I'd like to dig a little bit, because Ithaca, whether you like it or not, is being watched, because of this goal and this thing, and we're going to be harmed both in the success that may turn out not to be scalable, or in the failure of Ithaca. So we really have all a vested interest in seeing it succeed, and this is where those arbitrage that are made here simply because Schumer thinks it's a good idea. Politicians have no clue. You have to be plain about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on. Luis, if you have any information to forward to Mark, you can send it to me.
I can probably
get it to him.
Put you in touch with the hydrogen company developing this. I mean, as I mentioned, it's more expensive to produce than what you can get out of it. Thermodynamically doesn't necessarily work in the same way. It just happens to work in the context that we are, and that is what we're doing right now.
I think John had a question.
Okay, here's one. Where you are, what are the relative costs of electricity versus natural gas?
It is more expensive to electrify right now. I mean, 90% of the city runs on natural gas, heating systems, and the numbers just don't work out for most places. It works very well when you have a resistance-based baseboard heating system. It works for propane and it works for fuel oil. Natural gas works when you have large multifamily buildings. But the vast majority of the city, at least half of the residential buildings, are not like that. So the numbers are not working out. So, but initially we estimate that we have about 2,000 buildings that we can do where the numbers work. And then we're hoping that between now and 2026, which is what it's going to take us to do probably the first 2,000 buildings, hopefully just that, I believe that there's going to be changes. We are working with a utility company. I honestly believe that it's all in the rates. The rate structure needs to change. And we are right now in the rate case also hoping to have some sort of pilot program with the city. I mean, right now we're fortunate because they're paying a lot of attention to Ithaca. So the idea of an hourly base, demand-based rate system for people participating in the electrification program may actually allow the numbers to work for natural gas.
Okay. Well, thank you, Luis. We really appreciate your spending time with us tonight. We're very excited to hear about this program in Ithaca. And maybe we'll get some similar things happening back here in Massachusetts. I know the project down in Taunton, Massachusetts is actually moving forward. They got some sort of an award of funding in the last couple of days. So these things are happening and we appreciate hearing about them.
Yeah, no, I really like what's happening over there. And I talked to, and I don't know if Andrea Becerra, the one that is there. But, Acton is doing, good things. We're following very closely and, we really enjoy, talking to her. So.
Okay, thank you.
If I may compare with Ithaca, unfortunately, us in Massachusetts, we do not have such a decarbonized grid already. New York has got 2 or 3, I believe, nuclear plants, and a decent amount of hydro compared with us, and that makes a big difference on both on the rates and on the CO2, obviously.
Yeah, I believe that we have some of the cleanest electricity in the country. So yeah, that makes it easy.
We also have the inability to forbid natural gas hookups by state law or whatever.
Yeah, that sucks.
Okay.
Well, I have to go. I have a common council presentation now, so I'm gonna have to leave. But thank you so much for this invitation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Much.